Hi guys. So while we are waiting for at most 1 minute, and during this small warm-up, uh, you have time, and I ask you please write in our YouTube chat your expectation of what you wait from IT career, and what do you think about working in IT. And after that, we will work with this expectation. We will have some explanation about what's that, about what you may expect from IT work, and so on, and deeper items will be discussed too. Okay, guys, so anyway, let's start the main part. And while I am explaining several things, you are absolutely free to write your comments in our YouTube chat, and I will monitor them and I will answer new questions that are coming in this chat. So this webinar is about IT professions and how actually is to work in IT, and which are pros and cons of working in IT. So let's start. There are several expectations from people who are not familiar with real IT job of what you may expect when you come to IT world. Maybe the first and the most obvious thing, and the first because you see that when you come to a good IT company's office, is their cool and nice and beautiful offices. So it's true, and several words about that, and several comments why IT companies prefer to make such cool and nice and beautiful offices is that instead of, for example, gas and oil companies or some another natural resource-based companies, the main resource of IT companies is their employees. So employees can be considered as the new oil in IT. And as you may know, it's really hard to find, to attract, hire, and then retain really good IT specialists. That's why IT companies try to create comfortable conditions for their employees, and that's why their offices are really cozy and convenient and beautiful and so on. So it's true. What else you may know about working in IT? So it's expected, especially from the pandemic, that IT employees have flexible schedule, and moreover, very often they have chance to work remotely. Yes, it's true. So I can say that such flexible schedule was considered to be somehow risky idea even 5 years ago, before the pandemic, when, as you remember, all we worked in offices. But pandemic really has shown us that when you have flexible schedule, it's not a blocker to be effective. And as for remote work, yes, right, taking into account that very many IT companies has several offices, so they are not concentrated only in one city with one office. It means that these offices need to be somehow connected, and It means that if your offices are remote, so why not to work remotely if you are an employer? So everything is okay too. And yes, right, very often you have a good chance to work from any place over the world. Not always, but very often. Another well-known fact that is mostly true, that in IT, with most chances, you will find very interesting colleagues, and the atmosphere in your team with most chances will be very warm and supportive and so on. Maybe the root cause of this observation, or moreover, not only observation, but effect, is that when you work in IT, you need to learn constantly during all your career. And there is a very good and true saying that when you continue to learn, you keep young. And as you are young, regardless your real age, it means that you may be interested in a lot of hobbies, and you are an interesting person too, and most of your colleagues are interesting persons too, and they are not limited in very boring, how it can be said, lifestyle, like from home to office, from office to home, and do that every working day. So it's true in most cases. And maybe the last ideas for non-IT people about a typical IT job is that you may find a job worldwide, and if you want, and if you have time and skills, you may find a good job with high salary. So yes, right, at least in our recent past, it was really possible to find an IT job in every country. And again, remember about the possibility to work remotely and so on. And again, your possible salary may vary across countries. So it may be low in countries with low level of life. It may be higher in countries with higher level of life and so on. But again, mostly it's true. As for high salary for IT specialists, I can say that, just for example, maybe you know that in Israel, there is a lot of IT companies, and moreover, the share and percentage of IT specialists in Israel is relatively higher compared to almost any other country. And that's why the cost of life in Israel really depends on the high salaries of IT specialists. And if you are an IT specialist in Israel, everything is mostly okay. If you are not an IT specialist in Israel, maybe you will have some trouble due to high cost of living. So let's go next. But so as we discussed several topics regarding advantages of working in IT, there are several backsides and details that may be hard to adopt. By the way, the picture that you will see at this slide may be really true based on my experience. Once I faced a very similar picture in our server room, and for around 2 hours, I needed to find the corrupted cable without any labels, and it was really hard challenge. So what are backsides when you work in IT? The first, I cannot say that it's a bug. Maybe it's a feature. For some prophecies, maybe it's true. Then you graduate in university, so you take your diploma, then you go to your first job, and then from time to time you may need to somehow improve your skills, but it's not so pressing. But in IT, the whole picture is somehow opposite, because IT industry is really very dynamic. New technologies and new instruments, frameworks, tools, and programming languages, and even some concepts are evolving very fast. That's why, at least to keep your current grade and position, in most cases, you need to constantly learn. And in most cases, you first need to learn by yourself. Of course, often the company may somehow help you, for example, to pay and direct you to several required courses to improve your skills. But I cannot say that always you will find such companies that are ready to pay for your improvements. It's a good practice, but again, it's not always. And to successfully work in IT, you need to keep in mind that your skills and moreover your readiness to self-education during all your career is really very important. So by the way, to somehow demonstrate very big differences between IT industry and more some other industries in the world, I decided to take two polar samples. So one sample is IT industry, and the second sample is nuclear industry. So by the way, nuclear industry is really amazing thing because it's a very interesting and complicated fusion of deep science and deep and fundamental science, of economics, of high-tech engineering, and often even geopolitics. So it's really very interesting and useful and important kind of industry. But compared to IT, in IT, when you have an amazing idea and when you have your friends to build up your own business, typically it takes it takes less than 3 years to get your first investment in a startup. If you are successful and if your idea to build the business is okay, typically it takes less than 10 years to grow up your company that will cost more than $1 billion. So, and maybe you know that these companies are named like that. So I cannot say that every young IT company would definitely become a unicorn, but for successful company, 10 years maybe even enough. And moreover, new types of software, at least in my domain, I speak about cybersecurity. New types of cybersecurity software appear maybe even 1 or at most 2 years. So as you see, the industry is really very dynamic. But compared to nuclear industry, typically it requires more than 10 years to design a new reactor that will be powerful, more safe, more interesting in economics, so cheaper, and so on. It's really a long thing. When you want to add a new block, so a new reactor, to an existing nuclear plant, it requires at least 5 years, or maybe even more, maybe up to 8 or 9 years. When you want to build a completely new nuclear plant, for example, in desert, it requires at least 10 years. But when everything is done, or when the block or a completely new nuclear plant is built, it will work, of course, with some services and maintenance. It will work for at least half a century. So it's really long. But again, IT is something really opposite. And be ready that things in IT are evolving and changing really fast. What else I can say about several nuances and details and maybe disadvantages of working in IT? Keeping in mind that the industry is really fast and things are changing very quickly. It means that often you may work with some kind of time pressure. You will have a lot of tasks, and you need to work for the result, and your work will be monitored by several metrics, by several software, and so on and so on. I cannot say that it definitely leads to work in overtimes. Just for example, when we speak about different world cultures and different nations, and applying this knowledge to IT, I can say that many of, for example, Russian IT guys in theory are ready to work in overtimes. But there are not so many other cultures in the world that are ready to work in overtimes. Just for example, when we take, just for example, a major and so big American IT company, it's really hard to approve your work in overtime. So if you try to request, so, hey, boss, I want to work in overtime, it would be a signal to your boss that something is not so effective, and maybe your boss made the mistake in your estimations and so on. Again, even if you're working overtimes, so if you successfully approve some kind of overtime, typically it's paid, so everything is okay. But again, time limits and so on typically are really hard. And as for work for the result, again, you have very few chances to simulate your activities, to simulate your results and so on, because in IT, your result, it's varied, yes, but in IT, people get used to see your result and be ready for that. So, guys, while I'm explaining this short slide, please feel free to write maybe some missing IT professions that are not shown here. I can say that this list of IT professions is really very, very short, and there are much more of them. So while you are trying to remember what's missing, I can briefly explain every kind of IT guy shown here. So as for guys in analytics, they are responsible for creation of requirements. So typically they communicate a lot with your customers, with your business, and then try to translate their wishes and their requests and demands to a much more technical language that would be clear for example, developers. So they create a lot of requirements that are documents with clear specification of which exactly can be done. Okay, Reef, thanks for your question. I see that cybersecurity guys are missing there, and we will speak a bit deeper about them a bit later. As for QAs, I hope that this IT profession is well known. In brief, QA guys, their main purpose is to compare what is wanted, so what is described in requirements with the final result. As for support, so they help users, maybe your internal users, so your colleagues in IT, and maybe they are responsible for assistance to some external customers. So it's very wide. As for developers, I hope that everything is okay and obvious there. So these guys write code, and after that, this code is released as a ready software. What about operators? So operators, or in another wording, administrators. So their main responsibility is to properly configure your services, your environment, to maintain that, update, to create the proper connections, to plan your scaling in terms of hardware, and so on. And as for DevOps, maybe it's the most unclear word there. In brief, these guys are some hybrids between developers and operators. So mostly their main tasks are to help developers to deploy your code, to help developers and QAs to do some automation testing, to quickly deliver the ready code to production, to, I don't know, to maintain and to configure accordingly your bug trackers and much more. So again, it's only a small part of all existing IT professions, and let's go deeper. So I will explain this big scheme a bit later. And before we go deeper into this monster, I would want to tell several things about IT grades. So again, this picture is really simplified. So in brief, grade means your job title, your job, so your responsibilities, your salary, and so on, so on. So in a very simplified case, your way in IT begins on intern level, or much more often from level of junior, And then you have good chance to improve your career to middle, then senior, maybe an expert, or if you have chances and wish, you typically from senior grade or expert, you may shift to management. So in this picture, the length of every arrow is how easy or opposite to how hard and how long it may take for you to improve your career, just for example, from middle grade to to, to the grade of senior. So what I want to say regarding this picture and regarding these career improvements. So some of you may consider that the main difference between, for example, junior specialist and middle guy is your technical skills, is your knowledge of tools, technologies, frameworks, and so on. So it's true, but it's not the whole picture, because of course your hard skills, so hard skills mean your skills and knowledge of technologies and tools and so on are important, but your soft skills are really important too. So and regarding this pyramid and regarding hard and soft skills, I can say the following. Let's start from intern position. I may say that not so many companies really have intern position in their headcount, because by the definition of intern, that is a very young and really not experienced man who just has finished his graduation or courses and really doesn't have any working experience within this domain. Compared to junior specialist, when we speak about juniors, so yes, they may be young, they may be not so experienced guys, but anyway, a junior specialist is an employee that can completely do and perform at least some simple tasks. So you cannot assign any new task to intern and expect that this task will be completely done, because intern really continues to learn compared to junior specialist who can do at least some simple things, but without any external help. But junior specialists, again, they continue to ask some questions. And they address their questions to seniors or to their team leaders. But they can completely do at least some simple tasks. In most cases, your way from junior specialist to a middle guy may require not so long. So typically in 2 years, you have good chances to improve your grade from this one to here. So as for middles, of course, they need to know much more than juniors. Of course, they may take much more complicated tasks compared to juniors. And even more important, they may do much more completely. So Of course, they may continue to ask several questions to seniors and to team leaders, but they are much more autonomous, and they have less dependencies on others. And being on this grade, again, middle specialists have really good chances to work with some kind of independency, and often they may not communicate with other team members so often. But when a middle wants to become a senior, this way will take much more time. So in a good case, to grow from middle to a senior, it may require maybe up to 4 or 5 years, and it's in a good case. So often it takes even longer. So the main difference between a good senior compared to a good middle is that a senior is a person who should be ready to mentor juniors, to answer their questions. Of course, a senior should be really experienced with technologies, tools, instruments, software at all, and so on, so on. And again, keeping in mind that in most cases, seniors perform the hardest tasks. It means that they need to communicate with other team members a lot, because when you have a complicated task, it means that you need to have a lot of communications with other team members to successfully solve the task. And when you are a senior, you have several options. The first option that is not shown here is that sometimes, and maybe really often, people stay in this position for a long time, for many years. Due to several reasons, maybe they don't want to change their company, maybe, I don't know, their domain is really unique, maybe there are not so good options to improve the career somewhere higher. Anyway, but when a senior wants to improve his or her career, typically he or she has two options. The first one is to become an expert. So these guys are almost unique. Not all companies even have the proper position in their headcount, and not all companies have the necessity to keep experts in their teams. So an expert is a man who knows this domain as an expert. He knows the domain, the company, the interactions between different teams, and so on, really very well. And he is really experienced, and he is ready for very complicated and maybe unique technical tasks. And again, if an expert is tired and so on, if he or she doesn't want to solve only technical tasks, often these guys also have good chances to switch their career to management and to be responsible for team management and many other things also. So let's return to our very big and maybe unclear picture. So I have it as a separate file. So I can say that these options and this IT profession, the picture is not complete, because to make it very detailed and complete, it couldn't be demonstrated only on one screen, because it's really huge. So, but even in some kind of, even in reduced form, this picture is really big, and let's start to discuss the picture and options and so on. We may start just, for example, from QA guys. So they are here. In QA, you may improve your, in manual QA, you may improve your career from junior to expert. And after that, you would have several options to switch the career somewhere else. Just for example, if you are a good manual QA engineer and you want to do some kind of development, you may switch here to automation testing, or you may switch to load testing, or you may even come to management of projects or software development at all. So 1 minute, I'm sorry, the software seems not so stable because bugs are everywhere. So guys, I'm almost ready, and please half a minute. So yes, right, now it's much better. So we stopped our discussion at the possible options for a manual QA guy who decided to switch the profession to something similar but not the same. So there are several options to switch the career to automation testing, to load testing, or come to the way of management, starting from team leader position and with some chances to improve this management grade to chief of department and so on, with another options to be someone from high management board, or again, if you are a good manual QA, it means that you are a good software explorer and you know well all processes of software development, and that's why it wouldn't be so hard. So it would be hard, but even possible to switch the career to product owner. So they are guys who are responsible for software. How it can be said, to the whole process, starting just from money and budgets and up to the delivery and the release of the software. Or to come here, I may highlight that product management and management projects are really very different things. So anyway, you have chances. Just for example, if you are a good middle manual QA engineer, why not to, and if you are interested in programming, maybe you will find exciting and interesting to try yourself in QA automation. So, and for example, again, from QA automation, if you have been working there for some time, and if you want to switch your career again, why not to consider other things like DevOps, like developer, and so on, so on. By the way, as for developers, there are a lot of them. So they can be distinguished based on the required technology stack. So, as you know, a developer that is responsible for web development and a developer who writes code for hardware, they are really very different. So again, as for grades, you may improve your career from junior developer to an expert. And what is maybe the final or the very top kind of a good software developer? Typically, when you are a good senior or even an expert, you may switch your career to the position that is named software architect. These guys don't write a code, but they are responsible for the whole vision of software internals. So they create several diagrams and documentation and sometimes requirements of how the software should work, how this complicated software and how its internal pieces have to communicate with each other, and so on, so on. Again, if you feel yourself to try your luck in management, why not? Again, if you are a good senior and if you want to switch your career to management work, you will start from a team leader position, and then you may improve your career to the chief department and higher. As for DevOps, right? So these guys again are somewhere between developers and administrators. So when they become experienced enough, or when they want to change their career, they may switch to these guys. So compared to DevOps, these highlighted guys are responsible for help your QA department. So they help your QA engineers to deploy your infrastructure, software, and improve everything that lies below this software. So I mean servers and virtual machines and so on. Again, in good DevOps can also become a system architect. So I can say that software architects and these guys are not the same. So when we speak about them, a system architect is a guy who is responsible for creation of proper infrastructure, who need to carefully think about the required amount of servers, hardware, network equipment, and much more. And again, if you are a good DevOps, and if you want to manage people, and if you know how it works, you may improve your career as a manager with chances to be a guy here. As for these very unclear guys, so DevSecOps, who are they? They are DevOps who is responsible specifically for security. So it means that, just for example, your software needs to be deployed from your test environment to the production environment. And DevSecOps need to monitor that this operation will be done in a secure way, without any vulnerabilities, without any misconfigurations, and so on. Also, DevSecOps often help developers to keep their code secure, and so on. As for operators or administrators, so as we discussed it before, these guys set up servers and sometimes software. They are often responsible for hardware, for network equipment, and much more. And their grades vary from junior, so sometimes they are called in any case, to expert administrators who really know how these things work at low level, and who know, so just for example, who knows how to build a very fast how to maintain and configure servers for very high load. And again, if an administrator wants to switch his career somewhere else, they have chance to switch to DevOps. They also may grow from senior or expert level to these guys. So a system architect who will be responsible for the functioning of all subnets, all infrastructure, and so on. And again, if they want to be managers, again, this way is open too. So higher, higher, higher. As for support, so as you may know, based on your life experience, just for example, when you call to a bank or to, I don't know, any other big service, somehow picks the phone and answers you in the first minute. So it's the first line support when or if your question is relatively difficult. In most cases, you are switched to someone else. So someone else is called second line. Second line support works with technical items. And second line support also knows technologies much better. But anyway, these guys who work at the first line support are really very important and they really help. And in some companies, you may also find the guys who deal with the most complicated incidents or requests that came from customer side. So they are called not second line, but upper line, so third line. And as for technical support, again, they have several chances to switch their career to something nearby. When we speak about them, most often, if they want to switch the career path, the most often opportunities are QA, operators or administrators, and again, as always, they have chance to improve their career as managers. So this block, it's about management and all these chiefs, so C mean chief, all these chiefs were someone else. So as we saw in the left part, we know that there are several ways to be a high. There are several ways to be an upper manager. As for database specialists, databases at all is so it can be called as a separate even world because as for databases, there are a lot of processes and tasks there. So when we speak about databases, we may highlight that there are database administrators, database developers. So they are not people who develop database itself. They are people who develop a code for database. As for DB architects, in most cases, they were DB administrators or DB developers. So they are responsible for design and configuration of something big or huge, and typically something that works at very high loads. As for DB analytics, so they are again analysts for some other domain. As for management, again, if you are a good technical specialist and if you want and may manage people, why not? As for these guys, so scientists monitor and try to explain. So they deal with large volumes of data to find several correlations. Just for example, how to If we have a huge database of our customers and we want to sell them something more, how we need to draw a portrait of the customer. So maybe if we know our customers well, we can sell them something more. As for analysts, again, they create a lot of technical or business requirements. They also can improve their career from junior grade to an expert. And again, they may shift to management of software development. They may shift their career to project management. And again, they may become managers as well. And as for cybersecurity, I can say that it's maybe a separate world, and maybe every other profession can be also applied there, because there are developers who are specialized in cybersecurity development. The same I can say for analysts, for DB specialists, and for administrators, for support, and so on. And as for some kind of unique professions in this branch, administrators, we have already discussed them. As for DevSecOps, they can be considered as a specialized DevOps who focus their efforts on delivery of secure code and secure infrastructure and so on. What about some unique options there? So cybersecurity researchers, they are very clever and sometimes unique guys who know well almost everything about attacking, about defense, about how to detect a new attack, and so on. And often they may be considered as analysts. So if a company develops cybersecurity software, often researchers act like analysts, and they explain developers how we need to build and implement several security features in our software to detect and prevent several kinds of attacks. These very interesting guys, so reverse engineers, they deal, in most cases, they deal with machine code. They take an executable binary or even a hardware with some kind of firmware, and based on this compiled binary code, they are trying to find vulnerabilities, to find how these devices or compiled software can be attacked, and much more. As for pen testers, so please don't be confused with this second word, because the main part of their responsibilities completely differs from typical tasks assigned to QA engineers. So pen testers are those guys who legally attacks customers because they are paid for that, to do that faster than an attacker will come and hack your company. So pen testers in most cases are so-called white hats. So they are good, but they act like hackers. So their main purpose is to find all vulnerabilities in your infrastructure, in your servers, workstations, and to demonstrate, just for example, that your main asset or like your financial software or your financial subsystem can be attacked, and how a hacker can transfer your money to his own account, or how very important and very sensitive data can be stolen, and so on. As for SOC operators, so SOC means Security Operation Center. A lot of enterprise companies has their own security operation center where they monitor all security events and try to react on some kind of security incidents as fast as possible. And the SOC operator is an engineer and is a cybersecurity specialist who monitors all incoming events and react if necessary. And as for application security, this profession can be somehow distinguished from others. So they are guys who help to write code in a more secure way and who investigate your deployed subsystem, your deployed software to ensure that there are no vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, but they don't work with hardware, with operating system. Typically, they work only with your applications. So seems that this picture is completely explained, but unfortunately, I haven't seen any questions from your side in our YouTube chat. But maybe you wanted to ask, and what about money? Because money is a very important thing here. So to extend our discussion to money, I can briefly show you this the same tree, but with some numbers. So let me, yes, right. Let's start here. So at this picture, you may see the income fork for every grade. So that are average numbers across European Union. That are numbers in gross. So when you see these numbers, please count and remember about taxes. So, and as for the numbers specified here, I can say that they are average across European Union, and these numbers are a result of some private research that was completed around 2 months ago. So here you may see that expert grades are not shown because, again, when we speak about experts, not every company really requires them, and not every company that even requires them has the ability to attract them and to pay them enough money. For some positions, so you see question mark, it means that in most cases, some IT professions really do not require, for example, junior DevOps or junior automation testers. And for some professions here, these numbers and income rates are not shown because they really may vary, or because such guys are not so often required. That's why we haven't got enough numbers to include that here. So I don't want to describe a lot about why such numbers may vary so high, because they may vary depending on the company, depending on country, depending on which technologies are required and which technologies are counted to show these numbers, and so on. So, and maybe you have heard that DevOps are really very well paid specialists, and they are very rich. And hey, guys, let's come together to DevOps profession and so on. But as you may see on this picture, again, that's in average. You may see that some kind of developers may have even higher income. And again, very important notice about the numbers shown here. They are average numbers. So please, if you plan your IT career, it's better not to pay so much attention on the numbers shown here. Because if you, for example, if you have all talents and if you really want to work, I don't know, like a manual QA engineer or as a administrator, if you really want to work in a specific profession, it means that you will build your career much faster, and you will like your work much bigger, and so on. And based on that, you, with most chances, you will get these numbers at a high border. So if if it's yours, it means that with most chances you will get not that, but that. And again, these numbers are approximate, they are average, and so on. So I will give you some time to read and get the numbers, or maybe to make a stop in the future video recording and to know the numbers well. And this fork really means that, so yes, right here, when we speak about just, for example, DB administrators, and if you see several points here, it means that junior grade is not so required there, and that's why it's really hard to get the numbers of how a junior database administrator may get, or maybe for some kind of IT professions, it's really hard to find an open position for a junior DB administrator. And the same here as for SOC operators or engineers. So for security operation center engineers, I know that some open positions for junior SOC engineers really exist, but it's really hard to find the beginning of this fork. So, and in such cases, here in the middle, you may see the beginning of middle grade income, and at the right side, you may see the top level of salary for seniors. Again, they are shown in euro, and they are shown in gross. So your net income will really depend on the taxes for each country. So guys, I'm waiting for your question for several seconds, and if there are no questions in Zoom chat, the presentation and the webinar would be over. Okay, guys. So thank you for joining. And if some questions remain, you are absolutely free to ask them afterwards in our chat in Telegram. So thanks for watching, and have a good evening ahead. Bye.